The alarm shrieked across the bridge of the VES Dominion's fist. Red light bathed everything. Emergency protocols cascaded across holographic displays. Numbers climbed. Threat assessments updated faster than Commander Zolthax Vorn could read them. 843 unknown contacts. He'd been a fleet commander for 20 years. Led campaigns across 17 star systems. Conquered 12 worlds for the Vecthari Empire. He knew what impossible odds looked like. This was worse. "Sir," the voice belonged to his navigation officer. Young, panicked. The kind of panic that preceded mass casualties. Cross-reference complete. GC-7834's local designation is confirmed. Zolthax felt his four eyes widen, all of them, simultaneously. His tentacles went rigid against the command chair. "No, not this, not here." "Say it," he whispered. His voice barely carried over the alarms. "Tell me the name." The navigator's hands shook as he manipulated his console. The holographic display shifted. A single word appeared in 6 different Vecthari dialects. Confirmation from the Galactic database. Verified. Cross-checked. Undeniable. Earth. Someone dropped a datapad. The clatter echoed in the sudden silence as every officer on the bridge understood what that name meant. Commander Zolthax Vorn, decorated veteran of the Vecthari Imperial Fleet, leader of 47 warships, conqueror of primitive worlds, had just fired on the one planet in the known galaxy that carried a single universal warning across every civilized species navigation database. Do not engage. How? The question came from his tactical officer, Dravos Kael. The old veteran's scarred face had gone pale. How did we not know? Zolthax's mind raced backward. 72 hours, the War Council, the confident briefing, the easy target, 8 billion primitive laborers waiting to serve the Empire. How had they gotten here? 72 hours earlier, the conference room aboard the Dominion's Fist had buzzed with anticipation. 47 ship captains filled the curved rows of seats. The holographic display dominated the center of the room. A blue-green planet rotated slowly in the projected light. Beautiful, defenseless, perfect. Commander Zolthax Vorn stood before his assembled officers. His dress uniform gleamed under the chamber lights. 4 eyes swept across the faces of men and women who trusted him with their lives. He gestured with practiced authority toward the spinning world. "Gentlemen," he began. His voice carried the confidence of 20 successful campaigns. "I present to you the simplest conquest in our military history." Appreciative murmurs rippled through the room. "The target world is designated GC-7834 in our navigation charts." Zolthax expanded the hologram. Continents appeared, oceans, swirling white clouds in predictable atmospheric patterns. "Our long-range scans show a single unified planetary government. Unusual, but advantageous." He let that sink in. One government means one surrender, not dozens of separate negotiations. Political officer Morven Thax nodded from the front row. The thin Vecthari had pushed hard for this operation. The Empire needed laborers. GC-7834 had 8 billion of them. Tactical officer Dravos Kael manipulated his personal console. The hologram shifted. Weapon signatures appeared as red markers across the planet's surface. "Their visible technology level is primitive, Commander." Dravos's voice carried the gravitas of a veteran who'd seen real combat. "Chemical propellants for weaponry, actual explosives, kinetic projectiles. Their orbital presence suggests pre-FTL or early-stage FTL development." He paused for effect. No plasma weapons detected in active use, no particle beams, no energy signatures that could threaten our shields. Laughter rolled through the assembled captains. "Chemical weapons belonged in museums, not modern warfare. Their space presence is minimal," Dravos continued. "A few satellites, a small station orbiting their planet. Nothing armed, nothing that could resist even a single frigate, much less our full battle group." Zolthax gestured again. The display expanded to show the Vecthari fleet. 47 warships of various classes, nimble corvettes, deadly destroyers, massive cruisers, and the Dominion's Fist itself, a dreadnought, the pride of the Imperial Navy. It was overwhelming force for such a primitive target. But the Empire believed in certainty. No battle was worth losing because of inadequate preparation. "The indigenous population numbers approximately 8 billion, as Zolthax said. They are divided into multiple nation-states despite having a unified government structure. Our analysts believe this indicates poor social cohesion." He pulled up cultural data, charts, graphs, behavioral patterns. "They argue among themselves over trivial matters, resources, territory, abstract concepts they call ideologies." Morventhak stood. His role as political officer meant ensuring military actions served imperial interests. He was thin, bureaucratic, the kind of officer who'd never seen real combat but wielded enormous power anyway. The population will be valuable for labor conscription, Morven announced. They are physically robust, capable of surviving in various environmental conditions. After proper conditioning, they will serve the Empire well. More nods, more murmurs of approval. In the back row, junior analyst Kieran Sile frowned at his personal screen. Something in the cultural database seemed odd. He scrolled through behavioral notes compiled by the survey team. The inhabitants of GC 7834 engaged in something called persistence hunting. He read it twice. They literally chased their prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. What kind of predator did that? Most hunters use speed, strength, venom, natural advantages. Chasing something for hours seemed inefficient, wasteful, strange. Another note caught his attention. The species demonstrated spite as a motivational factor. They would sometimes act against their own immediate interests to prove a point or punish perceived wrongdoing. Kieran made a mental note to ask about it later. Probably translation errors. The survey team had only observed from the outer system, never approached close enough for detailed cultural analysis. Easy to misinterpret data from a distance. He dismissed it, returned his attention to the briefing. Our strategy is simple, Zolthax explained. He pulled up tactical maps, approach vectors, orbital positions. We enter their system, establish orbital superiority, broadcast surrender terms. He made it sound routine, because it was. Given their technological limitations, they will recognize the futility of resistance. If they are foolish enough to fight, we disable their industrial capacity with surgical strikes. Minimal casualties on both sides. Drebos nodded approvingly. A clean operation. We should have the planet secured within 5 standard days. 3 days, Zolthax corrected. His eyes gleamed with certainty. The Empire wants this concluded quickly. There are 3 other worlds in our expansion queue. The officers began discussing logistics, supply lines, garrison requirements, how many troops would be needed to maintain order during the transition period. It was all very routine. They had done this before, multiple times, on multiple worlds. The Vecthari Empire was not the largest in the galaxy, not the most powerful, but it was efficient, methodical, successful in its expansion. In the back row, Kieran continued reviewing cultural data. The survey notes described the inhabitants of GC 7834 as remarkably adaptable, unusually persistent. There was that word again, persistent. It kept appearing in the behavioral analysis, over and over. Like the survey team wanted to emphasize something important but didn't quite know how. The target planet was classified as a high-gravity world, 1.2 times standard, dangerous weather patterns. The species had survived multiple extinction-level events in their planetary history. Asteroid impacts, volcanic eruptions, climate shifts that would have wiped out most civilizations. They survived, adapted, continued, persistent. Are there any questions? Zolthax asked. His gaze swept the room. Kieran almost raised his hand. The odd behavioral patterns, the strange classification notes, the emphasis on persistence and adaptability. But he was the most junior officer present, barely 3 cycles into his military service. Questioning the commander's briefing in front of 47 captains would be presumptuous, embarrassing. The survey team had spent months analyzing GC 7834. They knew what they were doing. His concerns about translation errors and behavioral oddities were probably nothing. He lowered his hand, remained silent, a decision that would haunt him. Excellent, Zolthax said. We depart in 6 hours. All ships will jump together and arrive in formation. I want an impressive display. He smiled, 4 eyes gleaming with confidence. Sometimes the sight of overwhelming force is enough to secure immediate surrender. The officers filed out, already discussing which ships would get the honor of first orbital positions, already imagining their share of the glory, the promotions, the recognition from the Empire. Kieran gathered his data pad and followed, his unease growing despite the confident mood around him. Something felt wrong. He couldn't articulate what, couldn't point to specific data that contradicted the mission parameters. Just a feeling, a sense that the behavioral notes meant something the analysts had missed. But feelings didn't override orders. Intuition didn't cancel fleet deployments. 6 hours later, the Vecthari battle group activated their jump drives. Space folded around them in a shimmer of exotic particles. Reality bent, compressed. The laws of physics yielded to technologies that had taken the Vecthari millennia to master. The journey to GC 7834 would take 3 days at faster-than-light speeds, 3 days of final preparations, weapons checks, rehearsing the surrender broadcast, reviewing target lists for surgical strikes if the natives proved foolish enough to resist. Commander Zolthax Vorn spent the time in his quarters, reviewing psychological profiles of GC 7834's inhabitants. The survey team had identified key pressure points. The species valued their offspring highly. More than most civilizations, they formed strong emotional attachments, bonded pairs, family units, tribal structures that persisted even in their modern nation-states. They responded to shows of force, too, but also respected strength tempered with mercy. Threaten their young, and they would fight desperately. Demonstrate overwhelming power, then offer generous terms, and they would likely capitulate. It was a standard formula, one that had worked on a dozen other primitive worlds. Zolthax touched the photo on his desk, his own offspring. 3 of them, still young, waiting for their father to return with glory and honor, with stories of conquest and the expansion of imperial territory. He would give them those stories. 3 days from now, GC 7834 would be theirs. On the 3rd day, the fleet emerged from jump space at the edge of the GC 7834 system. The target planet hung in the distance, a blue-green jewel against the black, exactly as the survey data had shown. Continents, oceans, swirling white clouds. Beautiful, defenseless, about to become property of the Vecthari Empire. The fleet formed up in attack formation, engines burning steadily toward their destination. A precisely choreographed approach. 47 warships moving in perfect coordination. Zolthax took his position on the bridge, surrounded by his senior staff. Dravos at tactical, Morvan observing for the political office, Kieran at the analysis station. Status report, Zolthax commanded. All ships in position, Commander. The operations officer's tentacles danced across his console. No defensive response detected. A few sensor locks from their satellites. Nothing that could threaten us. Perfect. Zolthax prepared to open communications, to deliver the surrender demand he had given so many times before on so many worlds. The words came easily after 20 years of conquest. State your superiority. Outline the terms. Give them a short deadline to consider. It was almost boring in its predictability, but before he could speak, a voice came through their communication system. Calm, professional, unnervingly precise, speaking in perfect Vecthari. Attention unidentified vessels. This is Earth Defense Command, Colorado Springs Sector. You have entered protected space without authorization. The bridge crew exchanged glances. Translator programs could manage language conversion. That wasn't alarming. The voice continued. You have 5 minutes to reverse course and exit this system. Failure to comply will be considered an act of war. Earth Defense Command. What kind of grandiose title was that for such a primitive world? But laughter erupted across the bridge. Nervous at first, then genuine. The absurdity of it. A pre-FTL civilization issuing warnings to an Imperial battle group. Then someone screamed. The junior technician at the navigation station. His face had gone pale, all 4 eyes wide with horror, his tentacles trembling. Sir, his voice cracked. The planet designation. I just cross-referenced the local identifier with the Galactic database. He looked up at Zolthax, terror in his expression. GC 7834 is just our catalog number. The natives call their world. Zolthax felt his blood turn cold. Every instinct screaming, every survival reflex activating simultaneously. He whispered the word before the technician could finish. Earth. The laughter died instantly. Every officer on the bridge froze. Junior analyst Kieran Sile pulled up his database with shaking hands, accessing the secure military channels he had reviewed 3 days ago. The ones he'd been too junior, too uncertain, too afraid to mention. He found the file immediately, flagged with the highest warning level, updated by 6 different civilizations, verified and cross-checked across the galactic community. The title read simply, Earth, Do Not Engage. Kieran's hands trembled as he threw the file onto the main display. Every officer on the bridge read it. Every officer on the bridge understood what they had just done. Commander Zolthax Vorn, decorated veteran conqueror of 12 worlds, leader of 47 warships, had just led his entire fleet into the greatest tactical mistake of his life. They had come to conquer Earth, and Earth had been expecting them. The file hung on the main display like a death sentence. 43 incident reports, 6 civilizations, all involving Earth, all marked with the same warning. Priority alert. Do not engage. Do not provoke. Do not underestimate. Zalthax stared at the screen. His four eyes tracked down the list. Galtrine Concordat. Zorlok Hierarchy. Menar Trade Alliance. Quintel Federation. Species with technology centuries beyond the Vecthari. Species with fleets that numbered in the thousands. All of them recommended the same thing. Diplomatic contact only. Pull up the Galtrine report. His voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. First contact protocol, now. Kieran's hands flew across his console. The report appeared. Zalthax began reading it aloud, partly for his bridge crew, partly because speaking the words made them real, made them impossible to deny. First contact with Earth occurred during a border survey operation. Galtrine scouts encountered a small human exploration vessel in disputed territory. Following standard protocol, we seized the vessel and detained its crew for questioning. Reasonable, standard, nothing unusual. He continued. The human crew consisted of 5 individuals. They did not panic or beg for release. Instead, they observed our procedures with unusual focus. During transport to our security facility, they asked detailed questions about our ship systems, our culture, our government structure. Zalthax's voice faltered. He forced himself to continue. We assumed they were simply curious primitives facing their first contact with superior civilization. Political officer Morven Thax leaned forward. What happened? Kieran answered, his voice barely above a whisper. They escaped within 2 days, sir. Silence. Explain, Dravos demanded. Zalthax read on. Despite being held in a maximum security facility, despite having no tools or weapons, the humans systematically bypassed our containment systems. They disabled guards using improvised weapons created from eating utensils. They hacked our computer networks using a portable communication device one of them had concealed. He looked up, met the eyes of his senior staff. They stole a transport shuttle and fled the facility. Morven made a dismissive sound. Escape attempts happen. We've dealt with... They evaded 12 Galtrine military vessels for 4 days. Zalthax interrupted. The pursuit commander reported that the humans seemed to learn their tactics in real time, adapting their evasion patterns after each encounter. The bridge had gone silent, the kind of silence that preceded catastrophe. 3 weeks later, Zalthax continued reading. A human diplomatic vessel arrived at the Galtrine border. They requested peaceful negotiations. The Galtrine High Command agreed, believing they could dictate terms. He gripped the command chair. During negotiations, the human chief diplomat made a presentation. She displayed real-time surveillance imagery of 17 secret Galtrine military installations, locations classified at the highest security levels, bases hidden in remote systems, weapons research facilities that officially did not exist. Dravos made a choking sound. They hacked the Galtrine Concordat. The humans had found them all, Zalthax said. The report concludes with a recommendation. He read the final paragraph, his voice hollow. The species known as humans are to be approached with extreme caution. They possess technological capability beyond their apparent development level. More critically, they demonstrate adaptability, creativity, and determination that exceeds any species in our database. They are not to be threatened, provoked, or underestimated. Diplomatic contact only. He looked at Kieran. The young analyst had gone pale, his gaze fixed on his console. You knew, Zalthax said. Not a question, an accusation. You found this file. Kieran nodded, unable to speak. When? 3 days ago, sir, during the War Council briefing. Kieran's voice cracked. I saw the behavioral notes, the persistence hunting, the spite motivation. I looked deeper, found the classified files. And you said nothing. I almost did, sir. I raised my hand. But Kieran's tentacles trembled. I was too junior, too uncertain. I thought the survey team would have known, would have cross-referenced. I thought I was wrong. Zalthax wanted to rage, to scream, to throw the young analyst off his bridge. But what would be the point? They were already dead. Pull up the planetary classification, he said instead. Kieran found the file, threw it to the main display. Category 4 Death World. Zalthax had seen Death World classifications before. Extreme environments, toxic atmospheres, crushing gravity, planets where evolution created monsters. He read the details. Gravity 1.2 times standard, uncomfortable for most species, exhausting over extended periods. The kind of gravity that built strong bones, dense muscle, cardiovascular systems optimized for stress. Atmospheric pressure at sea level would cause respiratory difficulty for Vecthari. oxygen content of 21%, toxic to several species over time, corrosive to certain biological systems. Surface composition 71% covered in dihydrogen monoxide. Water. They lived on a water world. Temperature ranges negative 40 degrees to positive 50 degrees Celsius in habitable zones. Variations that would kill most civilized species. Weather patterns that included violent electrical storms, rotating wind columns capable of destroying structures, frozen water precipitation that could bury settlements. Native biology evolved to survive these conditions. The report continued. Humans were persistence predators, exceptional endurance relative to muscle mass. They regulated body temperature through liquid secretion. Sweating, a cooling system that allowed them to function in extreme heat. They possessed an emergency response system called adrenaline, temporary increases in strength, speed, and pain tolerance. A biological combat mode triggered by threat. They healed rapidly from injuries that would be fatal to many species. Dravos stared at the display. They evolved to hunt on a planet that actively tried to kill them. Commander, the communications officer's voice cut through the horror. Incoming transmission, audio only, same source as before. The voice came through again. That same calm professional tone. Speaking perfect, Vecthari. This is Admiral Kalen Vex Earth Defense Command. You now have 4 minutes to comply with our previous instruction. Reverse course and exit this system. We are tracking your vessel configurations and energy signatures. We have classified your fleet composition. You are outmatched. This is your final warning. Morven stood abruptly. Outmatched by primitives. This is propaganda, psychological warfare. Commander, I am invoking my political authority. The Empire's honor demands we make a show of force. Absolutely not, Dravos said. Sir, immediate withdrawal. These reports are clearly exaggerated, Morven interrupted. 6 civilizations defer to a pre-FTL species. There must be a conspiracy, a trade agreement, something we're not seeing. Political Officer Morven, Zolthak said carefully, I recommend we take this intelligence seriously. And I recommend you remember who authorized this operation. Morven's thin face twisted with bureaucratic fury. The Empire has committed 47 warships, invested significant resources. To retreat without even testing their defenses would be humiliating. It would be smart, Kieran muttered. Morven glared at him. You are a junior officer. Speak when addressed. He turned back to Zolthax. Commander, you will order a limited strike on their satellite network. A warning shot. Demonstrate our superiority. Then we negotiate from a position of strength. Every instinct Zolthax possessed screamed no. Every survival reflex demanded immediate withdrawal. Every tactical calculation showed catastrophic risk. But political officers had authority to override tactical decisions. It was the Empire's way. Military power serving political goals. He had lived his entire career under this structure. To refuse now would mean court-martial. Disgrace. His offspring would carry the shame. He closed his 4 eyes, thought about his family, his career. The 47 ships under his command. Thousands of Vecthari lives depending on his decisions. Then he thought about the reports. The warnings. The phrase that appeared in 6 different languages across the database. Do not engage. He opened his eyes. Tactical, he said, quietly. Target the nearest satellite cluster. Fire a single warning burst. Minimal power, just enough to demonstrate capability. Dravos hesitated. Sir, please reconsider. That's an order. The weapons officer entered the command. Energy built in the dreadnought's forward batteries. Capacitors charged. Targeting systems locked on. A brilliant blue beam lanced across space toward a cluster of human satellites. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the satellites moved. Not slowly, not with the ponderous rotation of objects in fixed orbit. They dodged. Primitive satellites that should have been little more than metal boxes in predictable trajectories suddenly maneuvered with impossible precision. Reaction thrusters fired. Orbital parameters adjusted in microseconds. The energy beam passed harmlessly through empty space. What? Zolthax began. Return fire came immediately. Not from the satellites. From weapons platforms that had been invisible to Vecthari sensors. Hidden, camouflaged, waiting, precise, devastating strikes hit 3 ships in the fleet simultaneously. The cruiser wing of Dawn shields flared and failed. Hull breach, atmosphere venting, alarm shrieking across the command channel. The frigate's Silent Blade took a direct hit to its engine assembly, power fluctuating, propulsion offline. The destroyer Far Horizon weapon systems exploded, life support failing in 2 compartments. Casualties mounting. All in 8 seconds. All ships evasive maneuvers, Zoltax shouted. Fall back to defensive formation beta. The fleet scattered, 47 warships breaking from their aggressive approach pattern, forming a protective sphere. A textbook defensive response drilled countless times. But Zoltax knew it wouldn't be enough. The humans had already proven they could strike with precision and power beyond what their technology level should allow. Where did those weapons platforms come from? Dravos demanded. His console showed tactical overlays, energy signatures, threat assessments. Our sensors showed nothing but primitive satellites. They were concealed somehow, the sensor officer reported. Now that they've fired, I can detect them. His voice shook. Sir, the readings make no sense. These platforms are using technology that shouldn't exist on a pre-FTL world. Kieran pulled up another file. There's a note here from the Minar Trade Alliance. 5 cycles ago, they encountered human vessels. The report says humans reverse engineer captured technology with remarkable speed. They don't simply copy designs. They improve them, make them more efficient. That's impossible, Morven said. But his voice lacked conviction. Technology progression follows established patterns. You cannot skip development stages. Humans apparently can, Kieran replied. New contacts appeared on the tactical display. Ships emerging from behind Earth's moon, 16 capital vessels, 32 smaller craft, more launching from orbital facilities with each passing second. The sensor officer studied the signatures. Made a confused sound. Sir, I'm detecting human vessels, but the designs are wrong. They should not be space-worthy. Zoltax zoomed the display. The human ships looked like they had been assembled in a scrapyard. Mismatched components, asymmetrical designs. Some appeared to be built from salvaged alien technology welded to human industrial equipment. Kieran pulled up intelligence data. Sir, there's a note here. Over the past 5 years, 43 alien scout vessels entered Sol system. 43 scout vessels were captured. The humans reverse engineered every one. He looked up at Zoltax. They didn't just copy the technology, they improved it, combined it with their own industrial capacity. These ships are hybrids. Alien efficiency meets human innovation. The human fleet should have fallen apart under its own structural stress. Instead, it accelerated toward the Vecthari fleet with purpose and precision. How many? Zoltax asked, his voice barely audible. 16 capital ships, 32 fighters, more launching. Sir, we still outnumber them. Morven seized on that. Commander, this is your moment. Prove the superiority of Vecthari military doctrine. Quiet. Zoltax didn't even look at him. Tactical, what are those human ships carrying? Dravos studied his screens. Difficult to determine. Energy signatures are inconsistent. Some appear to be using plasma weapons. Others have kinetic accelerators. Several show power readings that fluctuate wildly. It's like they built each ship differently. Because they probably did, Kieran said quietly. Humans apparently value the adaptability over standardization. The human fleet closed the distance. Zoltax expected them to form a traditional battle line. Textbook engagement formation. Something predictable. They scattered instead. No organization. No clear formation. Complete chaos. They don't know how to fight in space, Morven said hopefully. This is their first real engagement. We can use their inexperience. He was wrong. Zoltax realized it the moment the first human ship attacked. It didn't target the Vecthari weapons or engines. Standard tactics would focus on capability reduction, disable the enemy's ability to fight or flee. The human ship aimed for the Dominion's fist communications array, a precise missile strike. The array exploded, cut Zoltax off from half his fleet. They're targeting command and control, Dravos said, isolating our ships from each other. Other human vessels followed the same pattern. Strike the communications. Disable the sensors. Break the fleet's cohesion. It wasn't the tactic of inexperienced fighters. It was the strategy of someone who understood exactly how to dismantle a superior force. All ships' local command protocols, Zoltax ordered through backup systems. Captains have discretion to engage independently. But giving his ships independence played into the human strategy. Without coordinated fire, the Vecthari vessels became isolated targets. The human ships moved between them. Separating prey from the herd, a human corvette engaged the Vecthari cruiser, Eternal Flame. The cruiser had superior shields and weapons. It should have destroyed the smaller human ship easily, but the human captain did something no Vecthari officer would consider. The corvette launched all its missiles at once. not at the cruiser, at the space between them. The missiles detonated, created a massive debris field. Metal fragments, ionized particles, sensor scattering chaos. The cruiser's targeting systems went blind, stumbling in the sudden fog of war. In the confusion, the human corvettes circled around, hit the eternal flame engines from behind, not to destroy them, to disable them. The cruiser drifted, unable to maneuver, unable to retreat, helpless. "They're learning our tactics," Dravo said, horror creeping into his voice. "Watch, every attack pattern we use, they counter within minutes." Zolthak saw it too. A Vekthari destroyer tried a flanking maneuver. Standard doctrine, tested in 100 engagements. The first attempt nearly worked. The second time, the humans anticipated it, had ships waiting. By the third attempt, it was completely ineffective. "How are they adapting so fast?" Morven demanded. Kieran found another file. "Humans have something called pattern recognition, sir. Their brains are optimized for identifying the trends and predicting behavior. In their natural environment, they use this to track prey over long distances." His voice dropped to a whisper. "Now they're using it against us." A new alarm blared. One of the human destroyers had broken through the defensive perimeter, on a collision course with the Dominion's fist, heading straight for the bridge. "Destroy it," Zolthax ordered. The Dreadnought's point defense systems opened fire. Brilliant streams of energy, precise targeting, overwhelming firepower. The human destroyer's shields failed almost immediately. The hull took damage. Atmosphere vented into space. Any rational captain would have turned away. The human captain did not turn away. The destroyer kept coming. Zolthax watched small craft launching from the doomed ship. Escape pods. The humans were evacuating their crew. Then the destroyer hit. Not quite on the bridge. Close enough. The impact sent shockwaves through the Dominion's fist entire structure. Systems failed across 3 decks. The ship's artificial gravity fluctuated, sent crew members to tumbling. Emergency bulkheads sealed. Damage control teams scrambled. "Report." Zolthax pulled himself back into his command chair. "Hull breach on decks 7 through 9. Weapon system 2 is offline. Shields are at 40% capacity." The damage control officer's voice shook. "Sir, they used their own ship as a weapon. They sacrificed it deliberately." "After saving their crew," Kieran added, his eyes wide, comprehending. "They protected their people, then used the ship as a projectile." "That's insane," Morven said. "That's effective," Dravos corrected. The casualty reports flooded in. The destroyer Morning Light had lost all power, gone dark. The frigate Silent Wind suffered a reactor breach, had to be abandoned. The cruiser Endless Sky was being boarded by human forces who cut through the hull like it was thin foil. "Casualties?" Zolthax asked, dreading the answer. 8 ships destroyed or disabled in the initial engagement. 437 confirmed dead. Unknown number injured. The officer paused. "Sir, the battle is still escalating. 8 ships already, in less than 30 minutes, against a supposedly primitive species." "Sir, the Far Horizon just surrendered," the communications officer reported. "They dropped shields and powered down weapons. Human ships are moving to secure them." Zolthax expected the humans to destroy the defenseless ship. Standard doctrine, disabled enemies could become threats again if left alone. The human ships simply surrounded the Far Horizon. Held position, no weapons fire, no boarding action, just containment. "They're taking prisoners," Dravos said quietly. A transmission came through. Female voice, same calm professionalism. "Vekthari Fleet Commander. I am Admiral Kalen Vex, Earth Defense Command. You have now experienced a small demonstration of our defensive capabilities." The main display activated. Visual transmission. A human female appeared on screen. Military uniform. Short dark hair, brown eyes. Her face showed no anger, no excitement, just calm professional assessment. "You entered our space with hostile intent," Admiral Vex continued. "You fired on our property. Under our rules of engagement, we are justified in destroying your entire fleet." She paused. "Let that sink in. However, Earth does not seek unnecessary bloodshed. You made a mistake, a serious mistake, but one based on incorrect intelligence." Her expression didn't change, didn't soften. "I am offering you 2 options. First option, surrender your vessels immediately. Your crews will be treated according to established rules of war. You will be held temporarily, then return to your territory with a message for your empire." She leaned forward slightly. "Second option, continue this engagement. If you choose to fight, we will show you what we are truly capable of." Behind her, Zolthax could see operations centers, officers working at consoles, Tactical displays showing the battle. Professional, organized, prepared. Choose quickly, Commander, Admiral Vex said. My patience has limits. The transmission ended. Zolthak stared at this blank screen. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders. They had lost 8 ships. 8. Thousands of his people dead or injured, against an enemy using half their strength. He looked at his tactical display. The human fleet had pulled back slightly, giving him space. Time to decide. They could have pressed the attack, could have destroyed several more ships while he considered. Instead, they gave him time. It was almost courteous. What are our chances if we fight? He asked Dravos quietly. The tactical officer studied his screens for a long moment. Honestly, sir, we lose. Maybe we take some of them with us. But we lose. They're not fighting like any opponent I've trained against. They're unpredictable, creative. He paused. And they're clearly not showing us everything they have. What do you mean? Dravos pointed to the tactical display. See how their ships are positioned? They're only using half their fleet. The other half is holding back, watching. He gripped his console. I think they're still learning from us, sir. This is practice for them. Zalthax felt his blood run cold. The humans were treating this like a training exercise, testing their abilities against a real opponent, which meant if he chose to fight, they would stop holding back. He looked at the faces of his crew. Young officers like Kirin, who deserved a chance to grow old. Veterans like Dravos, who had families waiting at home. Even Morven, foolish as he was, didn't deserve to die for his pride. Zalthax made his decision, the only decision that made sense. He opened his mouth to give the order to surrender. Political officer Morven Thax pulled out a ceremonial blade. If you will not defend the Empire's honor, Morven screamed, I will. Oh! He lunged forward, slashed at the communications console. Sparks flew. The system went dead. Target their homeworld. Morven's voice echoed across the bridge. Make them pay for their insolence. Everything happened at once. Dravos tackled Morven. Security officers rushed forward. The blade clattered to the deck. And on the view screen, Admiral Kalen Vex's expression changed for the first time. She was no longer calm. She was angry. And somehow that was more terrifying than anything else. Unfortunate, Admiral Vex said, her voice cold. Final. All ships weapons free. Show them what they've earned. The human fleet that had been holding back suddenly surged forward. Behind them, rising from Earth's surface like angry insects, came hundreds more ships. Platforms hidden in asteroid belts powered up. Stations concealed in orbital debris revealed themselves. Zalthax realized with absolute certainty that the humans had been holding back this entire time. They had tested his fleet with a fraction of their strength. Now they would show him their real power. And Commander Zalthax Vorn knew with terrible clarity that none of his ships would escape. The Vecthari fleet was dying, not quickly, not with the mercy of sudden annihilation, methodically. The battle had raged for another 17 minutes after Morven's sabotage. What began as 8 ships destroyed became 13 more, then 17. The humans showed no mercy to those who continued fighting after the surrender offer was rejected. The final tally burned in Zalthax's mind. 21 vessels destroyed or disabled. Not 8. 21. The destroyer Morning Light lost all power, went dark, drifted like a corpse in the void. The frigate Silent Wind suffered a reactor breach. The crew had 90 seconds to abandon ship before containment failed. They made it. Barely. The cruiser Endless Sky was being boarded. Human forces cut through the hull with tools that burned hotter than anything in the Vecthari arsenal. Precision cuts, surgical entry points. They knew exactly where to breach. Damage reports flooded the emergency channels. The numbers had climbed steadily since Morven's betrayal triggered full combat. 17 ships destroyed or disabled became 19, then 20, finally 21, 843 confirmed dead, over 2,000 injured. The numbers had stopped climbing only when Zalthax ordered surrender. Sir, the operations officer looked sick. The Far Horizon just surrendered, dropped shields, powered down weapons. Human ships are surrounding them. Zalthax expected destruction. Disabled enemies became active threats if left alone. Standard doctrine across every military force in the galaxy. The human ships simply held position around the surrendered vessel. No weapons fire, no boarding action, just containment. They were taking prisoners. A massive impact shook the Dominion's fist. Zalthax grabbed his command chair to avoid falling. What was that boarding craft, sir? 3 of them. The security officer's tentacles flew across his console. They attached to our hull near the engine room, the armory, and the medical bay. Kirin pulled up internal sensors. Human forces are cutting through. Estimate breach in 90 seconds. Zalthax had heard stories about human boarding tactics. Brutal, efficient, focused on speed and overwhelming violence. He prepared himself for slaughter. At least he would die fighting. Better than he deserved after leading his fleet into this disaster. All security teams to breach points, he ordered. Prepare to repel boarders. 60 seconds later, the hull plating near the engine room glowed red, then white, then exploded inward in a shower of molten metal. Human soldiers poured through the opening. They wore heavy armor, carried weapons that looked crude but effective, kinetic rifles, chemical propellants, technology from a museum. But they moved with practiced coordination. Vecthari security forces opened fire immediately. Energy weapons lit up the corridor. The humans used the walls for cover, advanced in teams, suppressed the Vecthari defenders with concentrated fire while others moved forward. Within 30 seconds, they had pushed the security team back 2 corridors. Zalthax listened to the reports with growing despair. The same pattern repeated at all 3 breach points. Human forces advancing, Vecthari forces retreating. Not because his soldiers were cowards, because the humans fought with aggression that was almost incomprehensible. Then something strange happened. The human forces secured the engine room and stopped advancing. Set up defensive positions. Held. No push toward the bridge. No attempt to capture vital systems. They just secured their position and waited. "Sir, they're hailing us," the communications officer said, audio only. "Put it through," a human voice came over the speakers. Male, speaking accented but understandable Vecthari. "Vecthari vessel Dominion's Fist. This is Lieutenant Draventhorn, Earth Defense Forces. We have secured your engine room and disabled your jump drive. You cannot escape." A pause, background noise. Orders being given in the human language. "We have also secured your armory and medical bay. You have injured crew members who need treatment. We are willing to provide medical assistance. Power down your weapons and surrender your vessel. Your crew will not be harmed." Zalthax looked at Dravos. "Is he serious?" "I don't know, sir, but why would he lie? He's already won." Kieran was monitoring internal sensors. "Sir, I'm detecting something strange. The human forces in the medical bay aren't just guarding it." He stared in disbelief. "They're helping our wounded. Life signs are stabilizing. They're actually treating our injured." That made no sense. You didn't waste medical resources on enemies during combat. You secured the area. You moved on to the next objective. Yet the sensor data didn't lie. Human medics were providing aid to injured Vecthari. Another transmission. Admiral Vex's voice. "Commander Zalthax Vorn, I know you can hear me. Your political officer's actions were unfortunate, but I understand you were attempting to surrender before he interfered. I am willing to accept that you are not personally responsible for continuing this engagement." Her voice remained calm, professional, but there was steel underneath. "Power down your weapons. Order your remaining ships to stand down. Let us end this." Zalthax felt the weight of command crushing down on him. 21 ships gone, thousands of his people dead or injured, all because he had been too proud or too afraid of political consequences to retreat immediately when he learned this was Earth. "Sir," Dravos said gently, "they're giving us a way out. We should take it." Zalthax nodded slowly, reached for the fleet-wide communications, hesitated. "What will they do to us?" Kieran spoke quietly. "There's a note in one of the files from a Quintel ambassador who met humans at a diplomatic conference. He wrote that humans have a saying, 'We can be your best friends or your worst enemies. You choose.'" The young analyst looked up at Zalthax. "I think Admiral Vex just offered us that choice." Zalthax activated the channel. His voice carried to every remaining Vecthari vessel. "All ships, this is Commander Zalthax Vorn. Cease fire. Power down weapons. Prepare to be boarded by Earth forces. Any captain who wishes to continue fighting may do so at their own discretion." He paused, drew breath. "I'll see you. But I am ordering the fleet to surrender." Silence followed. Then one by one his remaining ships acknowledged the order. 26 vessels, still operational. Battered, damaged. They lowered shields, powered down weapons, waited for whatever came next. Human ships moved in cautiously. Boarding craft approached each Vecthari vessel. But the humans didn't storm through like conquerors. They entered methodically. Weapons ready, not firing. They secured bridges and engineering sections. Gathered Vecthari crew members into designated areas. But they didn't shoot anyone who cooperated, didn't execute prisoners. They followed procedures that seemed designed to minimize harm. On the Dominion's fist, the bridge doors opened. Human soldiers entered with weapons raised. Zalthax stood with his arms spread, showing he was unarmed. Around him, his bridge crew did the same. A human woman entered behind the soldiers, tall by human standards, wearing an officer's uniform, dark hair pulled back, brown eyes that assessed the bridge quickly and efficiently. Admiral Kalen Vex, she had come personally. Commander Zalthax Vorn, she pronounced his name carefully. I am Admiral Vex. We met briefly over communications. I remember. Zalthax's voice sounded hollow. You promised to show us what you were truly capable of. I did, and now you understand. She looked around the bridge. Is anyone injured here? No, we surrendered before your forces reached the command level. Good. Vex gestured to one of her soldiers. A medic brought forward a scanning device. We'll need to check anyway. Some injuries aren't visible. Zalthax watched in confusion as human medics scanned each member of his bridge crew. They identified 2 officers with internal injuries from earlier impacts. The medics treated them on the spot, using equipment that was portable but surprisingly sophisticated. I don't understand, Zalthax said. Why are you helping us? We invaded your world. Vex looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. Please, Commander, you made a terrible mistake today. You attacked Earth based on incomplete intelligence. You assumed we were weak because we appeared primitive. She gestured to the view screen. Earth hung peacefully in the distance. But the mistake itself isn't unusual. Many species have made similar assumptions about others throughout history. What matters now is what happens next. She walked to the view screen, looked out at the stars. My world has a long, bloody history, Commander. We fought among ourselves for thousands of years, killed each other over resources, territory, ideas, religion. We were very good at violence. The best, perhaps. Vex turned back to face him. But eventually we learned something important. What did you learn? Kieran asked quietly. That cycles of revenge accomplish nothing. If we kill all of you today, what does that solve? Your empire sends a bigger fleet to avenge you. We destroy that fleet. They send another. Eventually both our civilizations are exhausted or destroyed. She spread her hands. Everyone loses. Zalthax thought about his offspring, waiting for him at home. If he died here, would the Empire send another fleet? Would his children grow up wanting vengeance? Would the cycle continue until both species bled themselves dry? We learned that the way to end conflicts is not through total destruction of your enemies. Vex continued, it's through demonstrating strength, yes, but also offering dignity and a path forward. She met Zalthax's eyes. You attacked us. We stopped you. Now we want you to go home. Tell your people what happened. Make sure it never happens again. Dravo spoke up. You're just going to let us go eventually. First, there are procedures. We need to document everything that happened here. Treat your wounded. Repair your ships enough that they can travel safely. Establish communication protocols with your empire. Vex nodded. All of that takes time. But yes, Commander, you will go home. Your crews will go home. You will carry a message to your empire about what happened here. Her expression hardened slightly. And hopefully you will ensure that no one else makes the same mistake. Zalthax felt something he hadn't expected. Shame. These humans had every right to execute him for his invasion. Instead, they were treating him with respect. Professional, clinical respect, but respect nonetheless. Why, he asked. Vex smiled slightly. Because we understand something about power, Commander. True power isn't just the ability to destroy your enemies. True power is having the ability to destroy them and choosing not to. She gestured to her soldiers. They lowered their weapons. You are now prisoners of war under Earth's protocols. That means you have rights: food, water, medical care, humane treatment. We will respect your dignity as sentient beings even though you came here to conquer us. Her voice carried absolute conviction. Do you understand? Zalthax nodded slowly. I understand. And Admiral Vex, I am sorry, not just for the invasion, but for not listening to the warnings. We knew about Earth. We just didn't believe the reports. Now you do, Vex said simply. Now you will make others believe too. That is the message I want you to carry home. Over the next 3 weeks, Zalthax watched the humans work. They treated Vectari wounded with the same care they gave their own injured, transferred the most critical cases to human medical facilities on their moon, used technology that accelerated healing, saved lives that would have been lost. They repaired Vectari ships, not perfectly, but enough to make them jump capable, enough to get home. They provided food compatible with Vectari biology, had clearly researched their nutritional requirements, prepared meals that met cultural preferences. They even allowed limited communication home, so families could know their soldiers were alive. Zalthak spent time talking with Admiral Vex. She explained human history, their wars, their mistakes, their slow progress toward peace among themselves. She showed him records of human conflicts, didn't hide their violent past, but explained how they grew beyond it. On the fifth day, she showed him something else. Classified schematics appeared on the display. Zalthax's four eyes widened as he recognized weapon systems. Orbital mass accelerator cannons, Vex said quietly, each capable of punching through a dreadnought's shields in one shot. We had 47 of them, one for each of your ships. She scrolled through the files. Quantum disruption warheads. They don't just destroy matter, they unravel it at the atomic level. We had 60 in ready launch positions. More schematics, more nightmares. Kinetic bombardment satellites, fusion lances, electromagnetic pulse mines, antimatter torpedoes. She met his eyes. 10 different weapon systems, each one capable of ending your fleet in under 90 seconds. Zalthak stared at the screen. His tentacles trembled. We didn't fire a single one, Vex said. Not one. She closed the display. That's what I want you to understand, Commander. True power isn't having these weapons. It's having them and choosing not to use them. On the fifth day, she showed him something else. Classified schematics appeared on the display. Zalthax's four eyes widened as he recognized weapon systems. Orbital mass accelerator cannons, Vex said quietly, each capable of punching through a dreadnought's shields in one shot. We had 47 of them, one for each of your ships. She scrolled through the files. Quantum disruption warheads. They don't just destroy matter, they unravel it at the atomic level. We had 60 in ready launch positions. More schematics, more nightmares. Kinetic bombardment satellites, fusion lances, electromagnetic pulse mines, antimatter torpedoes. She met his eyes. 10 different weapon systems, each one capable of ending your fleet in under 90 seconds. Zalthak stared at the screen. His tentacles trembled. We didn't fire a single one, Vex said. Not one. She closed the display. That's what I want you to understand, Commander. True power isn't having these weapons. It's having them and choosing not to use them. We're not perfect, she told him one day. They sat in an observation lounge on the lunar facility. Earth hung in the window. We still argue, disagree, sometimes violently, but we learned to fight with words and votes instead of weapons, most of the time. What changed, Zalthax asked. We realized we were all on the same small planet. We had to find a way to coexist or destroy ourselves. We chose coexistence. Vex looked at Earth. Now we're trying to extend that philosophy to the galaxy. Kieran, who was present for many of these conversations, asked the question that haunted them all. What happens when you meet species that don't want peace, species that only respect violence? Vex's expression hardened. Then we show them we are very, very good at violence. But we make sure they understand that violence is our last choice, not our first. She looked at both of them. There's a difference between being peaceful and being harmless. Earth is peaceful. We are not harmless. 3 weeks after the battle, the Vecthari fleet prepared to depart. 26 ships instead of 47, crews reduced by casualties. Wounded who needed extended medical care remained in human facilities, but alive, returning home. Zalthak stood on his repaired bridge one final time before departure. Admiral Vex appeared on his view screen. Safe travels, Commander, she said. I hope we meet again under better circumstances. As do I, Admiral. Zalthax paused. I will deliver your message. I know you will, and Commander. Vex's expression softened slightly. You're not a bad officer. You made a mistake. Learn from it. Your people will need leaders who understand what happened here. The communication ended. The Vecthari fleet activated their jump drives. Space folded around them. Earth disappeared from the view screen. Zalthax wondered if he would ever truly understand the strange species that lived there. They could have destroyed his fleet, could have killed him and all his crew. Instead, they showed mercy, not weakness. Mercy. That Zalthax realized was the most frightening thing of all. The Vecthari fleet emerged from jump space at the border of Imperial territory. Battered, diminished, but intact. Commander Zalthax Vorn sat in his command chair, prepared for the most difficult part of his mission. Not the battle, not the surrender. The explanation. The border station immediately hailed them. This is Imperial Station 7. Identify yourselves. This is Commander Zalthax Vorn returning from the GC 7834 operation. A long pause. Commander, we show only 26 vessels. You departed with 47. What happened? That is a long story. I need to speak with Imperial Command immediately. Understood. You are cleared for approach. Medical ships are launching to assist. 2 days later, Zalthak stood before the Imperial High Council. The chamber was vast and cold, filled with the most powerful individuals in Vectari civilization. Military leaders, political figures, economic ministers, all of them staring at the commander who had lost 21 ships. Commander Zalthax Vorn, the High Chancellor, began. Explain what occurred at Jita 7834. Zalthax straightened his posture. Honored Council, we attempted to invade Earth. Confused murmurs rippled through the chamber. Earth is not in our invasion database, a minister said. No, honored minister. Earth is in our warning database, under local designation, not catalog number. Our survey team failed to make the connection. I failed to verify before we entered the system. He proceeded to tell them everything. The confident approach, the moment of realization, the battle, the surrender, his time as a prisoner, the humans' treatment of captured Vectari forces. When he finished, silence filled the chamber. You are telling us, the High Chancellor said slowly, that a pre-FTL civilization defeated our battle group? They were never pre-FTL, honored Chancellor. That was our critical misassessment. Earth has had faster-than-light capability for decades. They simply chose not to use it for expansion or exploration. They have been in contact with multiple civilizations. They simply haven't engaged in widespread exploration. Zalthax met the Chancellor's eyes. They have been observing, learning, preparing. A military advisor spoke up. Your report mentions that Earth treated prisoners according to rules of war, provided medical care, returned your forces. Why would they do this? The humans explained their philosophy. They believe cycles of revenge are counterproductive. They demonstrated their military capability, then offered us dignity and a path forward. Zalthax pulled up the battle footage, showed them the weapons platforms, the hidden fleet, the systematic dismantling of Vectari forces. They want the galaxy to know they can defend themselves, but they prefer peace to conquest. That sounds like weakness, a political minister said. It is not weakness, honored minister. Kieran stepped forward. Forgive my interruption, but I was there. The humans were holding back during most of the battle, testing us. When they decided to end the engagement, they did so with overwhelming force. He brought up tactical data. They could have destroyed us completely. Choosing not to was not weakness, it was strategy. Dravos added his voice. If I may, I reviewed all combat data from the engagement. The humans adapted to our tactics in real time, displayed creativity and aggression beyond any opponent I have encountered in 20 cycles of military service. He highlighted sections of the battle. More importantly, they showed us only a fraction of their defensive capabilities. There were weapons platforms and vessels that never engaged. They keep reserves hidden. The High Chancellor leaned back. What is your assessment? Commander, is Earth a threat to the Empire? Zalthax considered carefully. Earth is a threat to anyone who threatens them, honored Chancellor. But they are not expansionist. They do not seek conquest. 6 other civilizations have reached the same conclusion. All recommend diplomatic contact only. What do you recommend? We accept their terms. Pay reparations for the lives we took. Add Earth to our highest priority navigation warnings. Properly cross-reference this time. Zalthax drew breath. And we never ever attempt military action against them again. The council debated for hours. Finally, they reached a decision. Commander Zalthax Vorn, the High Chancellor, announced. This council finds that you acted with poor judgment. However, we recognize that the survey team's failure contributed to this disaster. Furthermore, your conduct after realizing your error was appropriate. You minimized casualties and secured the return of surviving forces. The Chancellor paused. You are hereby removed from Fleet Command. However, you will be reassigned to the Xenological Study Bureau. Your duty will be to ensure this kind of mistake never happens again. It wasn't a glorious assignment, but it was fair. Thank you, honored Chancellor. Officer Kyron Sayel, the Chancellor continued, you demonstrated initiative and intelligence. You are promoted to full officer status and assigned to work with Commander Zalthax. Kieran looked stunned. I am honored Chancellor. As for Earth, the Chancellor said, this council votes to accept their terms. We will pay the requested reparations, establish diplomatic contact, and update all navigation databases with appropriate warnings. 6 months later, Zalthax completed his comprehensive report on Earth. It was distributed to every military installation in the Empire, honest about the defeat, detailed about human capabilities, emphatic about the most important lesson. The report's conclusion became famous throughout Vecthari space. Humans are not to be feared because they are violent. Many species are violent. Humans are to be respected because they are capable of both extreme violence and extreme restraint, and they choose restraint when possible. This combination makes them more dangerous than any purely aggressive species. They cannot be intimidated. They cannot be provoked. They cannot be predicted. Approach them with honesty, respect, and peaceful intentions, or do not approach them at all. The report spread beyond the Vecthari Empire. Other civilizations read it. Some dismissed it as exaggeration. Others took it seriously. Many requested copies of all available data about Earth. 1 year after the battle, Earth hosted its first Galactic Trade Conference. 53 civilizations attended, including the Vecthari Empire. Zolthax was part of the delegation, now recognized as an expert on human relations. During the opening ceremony, Zolthax watched a human presentation. Footage from 1 year ago, Earth's civilian population, cities on lockdown, families huddled in shelters, children asking their parents if the aliens would hurt them. Then footage of the aftermath, those same families returning to their lives. No cities destroyed, no mass casualties. Earth had been ready to defend itself, but also ready to show mercy. One human speaker addressed the assembled civilizations. An elderly woman, a civilian, not military. My grandson asked me if the aliens were monsters, she said, her voice quiet but clear. I told him no. They made a mistake, and we taught them a better way. She looked directly at the Vecthari delegation, at Zolthax. That's what Earth does. We don't destroy our enemies, we turn them into friends. The chamber fell silent. Zolthax felt something he couldn't name. Shame, gratitude, hope. Trade agreements were signed, cultural exchanges established. Humans proved to be shrewd negotiators, but fair. They wanted partnerships, not domination. On the final night there was a reception. Zolthax found himself standing near a window, looking out at the human city. Lights stretched to the horizon, millions of humans going about their lives, unaware that their planet had nearly been invaded a year ago. Beautiful, isn't it? Zolthax turned. Admiral Vex stood beside him. Dress uniform, holding a small cup of dark liquid. It is, he agreed. Your world is remarkable. Thank you for coming, Commander, for representing your empire. I know it couldn't have been easy. It was necessary. My empire needed to see that you meant what you said, that you truly wanted peace. Vex raised her cup. To difficult choices. Zolthax raised his glass of water. To learning from mistakes. They stood together in comfortable silence. Two warriors who understood each other. Around them, diplomats from dozens of worlds mingled, talked, built bridges. The galaxy was learning about Earth. Some species remained wary, some curious, but all of them had updated their databases. Next to Earth's coordinates in every navigation system in civilized space, there was now a warning. In Vecthari databases it read, Earth, human homeworld, diplomatic contact welcome, military actions strictly prohibited, serious consequences for violations. We mean it. We really, really mean it. Below that in smaller text was a note added by Zolthax himself. Approach with honesty and respect. They will respond in kind. Approach with hostility, and you will learn why 53 civilizations call them friends instead of enemies. Choose wisely. The warning had been accessed 2.1 million times in the past year. So far, no one else had been foolish enough to test it. Zolthax hoped it would stay that way. The galaxy didn't need more wars. It needed more species willing to choose peace when they had the power to choose otherwise. Earth had taught him that lesson the hard way. Now he spent his days teaching it to others, hoping that someday the warning wouldn't be necessary. That species would approach each other with curiosity instead of conquest. It would take time, maybe generations. But looking at Admiral Vex at the peaceful city beyond the window, at the diplomats from dozens of worlds working together, Zolthax allowed himself to hope. The galaxy was changing. Earth was part of that change. And perhaps in some small way, so was he. That was enough.